there is something that I think we all intuitively understand, and then some fraction of us are going to deny it, right? Because we're involved in a political, an ideological move. But we all understand that actually being male and being female, even if you are a female who has many male gender attributes, still the roles are so different that the question, the reason that we would have different categories with acting awards, for example, is that there's a question. It's not a question of how good an actor you are. It's a question of how well you acted a particular role. And because at the very least, it is true that we are struggling to find examples where a role isn't explicitly sexed. The point is, the best actress on earth, or the best actress in a movie role in the last year, is a different question than the best male actor, because inherent to virtually any role are things that, my guess is the best actress on earth will portray a wide range of female characters wonderfully, and struggle to plausibly portray most male characters, right? Because the point is, the court is different in some sense.
Yeah, although this then feels like it's skirting close to the, I believe, nonsensical argument that if you aren't the thing, you can't play the thing.
Oh, no,
right?
no.
And so, we certainly see this over in like trans space, right? Like, oh, well, we've got trans characters. You can't have a non-trans actor play a trans character. Well, no, that's what acting is.
Right.
Right. We have a Native American character. It has to be a Native American person playing that role. It's like, well, if what you're saying is to right an historical wrong of Native American underrepresentation in roles in Hollywood, then whenever you have a Native American character, you should have a Native American playing it. That is one argument. That is an argument that we can talk about. If the argument is, as it is generally stated, it is. I don't even know how it's stated, but it doesn't go there. It's just like,
right.
you cannot. That's what it is. It's not even an argument. It's an authoritarian, like, you cannot have a role of someone who's disabled played by a non-disabled actor, of someone who's trans played by a non-trans actor, of someone who's Native American played by a non-Native American actor. And actually what acting is having such remarkable theory of mind that they really can inhabit someone else's being. And if hopefully it's written well enough, the character is written well enough that they really can go into that and be it. And, the example that everyone knows of, like in Shakespeare's time, women weren't on the stage. And so men played both the male and the female actors. That was presumably not because, it was more like, oh, it's the slight guy who's like, it's the guy with the slight physique who's going to play the woman, as opposed to the one who sort of has more of a feminine nature. But I think and I'm not coming up with examples at the moment, but I think that there have been compelling renderings that make you think about what it means to be feminine, to be masculine, not to be male or female. Right.
No, I am of course not making that argument, and I would say that the correction we can see, because the idea that a woman can't write a male character compellingly is insane. Right. Women do this all the time. Men write women characters, maybe less often compellingly, but it happens. And so anyway, it's not a theory of mind issue. It's a question of how compellingly can you represent. And let's be honest, this is sort of the proof of what we've been saying. You can identify somebody's sex very frequently by their gait, at 100 meters. Right? Occasionally you're wrong, but very, very rarely. And that's
the way they're moving their arms. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And, the voice, it's an octave off. Oh, interesting. Right.
Yeah.
That is an interesting fact, that it's an octave off.
Yeah.
So anyway, the point is, it makes sense because these roles, we can't help it. That's the thing, is you can be a leftist activist as much as you want, but we cannot help but categorize this stuff because we're built to, because literally millions of years of evolution has driven us to pick this up as one of the first characteristics we identify, because everything that follows from that is different depending on it.
Yeah. And there are, there are good ways to play around with gender roles and gender norms and not deny reality. And in fact, actually, I wasn't going to say anything about this, but I was in Portland for a few days this last week, as you know. That's why I wasn't here. Was that where you were?
I thought it because it wasn't February yet.
Yes, right. And while there, I saw this fantastic piece of live theater called something like Ms. Holmes and Ms. Watson, or Miss, I don't remember, Ms. or Miss Holmes and Miss Watson. And it's a modern day reimagining of Sherlock Holmes and John Watson?
Yeah.
Yeah. As female characters in like 2021. And I must say, in advance of the play, when they started doing the land acknowledgments and the talk about all the people that we have to make sure to include in this, that, and the other, it's like, oh God, what have I gotten myself into? But the play itself was exquisite. It was really excellent, and especially, more than the writing, actually, more than the screenwriting. But the 4 actors involved, 3 of whom were women, 1 of whom was male, were extraordinary, and none of them were doing caricatures of one sex or the other. They weren't pretending that it's nothing to have Sherlock Holmes now be. Actually, I think they kept the name Sherlock. I think it's still Sherlock Holmes, but as a woman, and it worked brilliantly. And I thought, oh, here it is. Like here is a case where it can be done really, really well, and no one is being forced to say, actually, yeah, those clothes that the Emperor is wearing are really, really nice. Like no one had to do that for the show.
So I confess I am not able to quickly spot why music is different. It's clear that it is.
Different from which?
The rule that I'm arguing is pretty much a rule.
Yeah.
Acting male and acting female are sufficiently different that, Joan of Arc would not be well played by a man, right, even though she was a masculine woman, right? Right. So anyway, there's something about in acting space, there appears to be a very significant, based in ancient stuff, reason for that sexual distinction. That sexual distinction existed in music, and it has broken down in our lifetime, I think, much to our benefit. Mm-hmm. It is somehow a more flexible, and I've seen it break down in a couple ways, actually. There are a lot more women making compelling rock and roll or some derivative of it, right? There's a lot of good bands that either include women, the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, for example, Metric, or, are female in nature, the bands themselves. And there's been a lot of exploring. They're pioneering in ways. They're not just sort of doing what the guys do.
Yeah.
There's also...
And it's not the music equivalent of like romance novels.
Yeah,
I mean,
right,
that exists,
exactly.
Right? But
no,
pop exists in both sexes, and like that's not what you're talking about.
They're pushing they're pushing the edges of the same envelope, I would say. There is also a slight change in what was effectively a rule about sex and gender in music, where it was okay for a woman to sing a man's set of lyrics, but a man couldn't really sing a woman's, right? That has broken down. There's some famous examples of men singing a song that is clearly from a woman's perspective and it working very well, like Jolene, right? The White Stripes version of Jolene is one. And what's another? There's the Lumineers. There's a song, it's a fascinating song written, I think the lead singer was in a taxi in Europe somewhere, and the taxi driver had, she was driving a taxi, had lost the, love of her life. Her timing was bad. And anyway, she had kind of a tragic story. And so he wrote it as a song. And anyway, it's quite a good song. But again, it's a guy singing as if he were a woman, and it works, Yeah.
No, I feel like some of Bonnie Raitt's music has been covered by male singers.
Oh, that's right.
I can't think of particular examples, but yes. That was a norm that I think I never heard anyone say this, but I think it was imagined that male singers embodying female thoughts and voices was somehow emasculating.
Yeah.
And so this is one of the wins. This is one of the wins of feminism and of 20th century liberalism. Like, you know what? It doesn't need to be that way. No. And if that's not your thing, that's cool. But this actually can free the creative mind to say, you know what, I've got a take on that. And I understand that is written, by and from and of a female perspective, but I have something to add. And I'm not going to pretend that this is now the only way to do it.
Right.
That's not the way to go. But hey, guess what? There's another way to do this.
Right. And it opens up. So 2 examples I've given of men singing lyrics written from a woman's perspective, they portray it from a woman's perspective. And then there's the Cake rendition of I Will Survive, which actually turns the song on its head.
I'm not sure I know that version.
It's wicked. It's really good. But anyway, it takes on an entirely different character. In the original version, it's sort of this woman who's been in, I don't know if it's a physically abusive relationship, but she's clearly been in an abusive relationship, and she's standing up for herself. But, abuse works differently depending upon who's meeting it out. If it's, the physically weaker sex, the abuse is of a very different nature. And so all of the lyrics to I Will Survive become something else. Anyway.
So they don't change the lyrics.
Right.
But they also don't pretend that they're not male singing it.
Correct. And it is a very different song at that point. And of course the White Stripes version of Dolly Parton's song is also quite different. And apparently there's a famous correspondence between the two where Dolly Parton is not compelled by Jack White's version, and Jack White makes the argument that actually he's staring at the deeper meaning in the song.
Well, that is an argument that is unsexed, right? Like that is an old and abiding argument in literature. But I think maybe in any kind of creative space, but specifically in music and in literature, around maybe not literature so much. Oh, well, playwrights. I created the thing, and the way that you have manifested it you've missed my point. And to which the director and the producer and the all of the actors and everyone else involved in the production can say, you know what, you put this thing out into the world, and you can have your understanding of what that is, but you put it out into the world for us to now do with what we want. And with a play, this is an obvious argument to be made, right? Because the play doesn't have that much meaning. Like I happen to love theater enough that I have a shelf of books of plays, but really reading a play is a very weak way in to what a playwright's mind was trying to accomplish, and music even more so. That if you understand yourself to be, especially like a singer-songwriter, right? If you're successful at all, probably some of your songs will get taken and adapted and transformed and understood differently. And how amazing that you have the potential to say, you know what, you got that wrong, and have the other person say, you can say that, you can believe that, and you do believe that, but I think differently.
Yeah, and then there's a third possibility, which is the teleportation of some sort of a canonical idea into a new realm. So, we keep having to reinvent Plato's Cave because Plato's Cave is so archaic.
Yeah.
But the Matrix is very vivid to us Gen X types, right? It has a deep meaning. Or West Side Story and its relationship to Romeo and Juliet. Mm-hmm. But there are things which need to be updated, and the point is how much of the original you keep. Heart of Darkness and Apocalypse Now, mm-hmm. right? There's very little that's maintained. There's sort of a basic, descent into a place beyond.
The metaphorical truth at the heart of Darkness is there, but it's even transformed. Heart of Darkness is Africa.
Yep.
And Apocalypse Now is Vietnam.
Yep.
Right. So the but the white man explorer who loses his mind and wreaks chaos and havoc and destruction on a native population and needs to be stopped by more later white explorers is one of the points of connection between those two renderings, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I'm thinking of another version, which I can't remember the name of the second movie, but do you remember that there is a movie along the same plot as Dr. Strangelove, actually released at approximately the same time?
I don't.
But it's a serious version.
Really?
Only the Kubrick version lasts in people's memory because, it's so remarkably different from anything else that had ever been made.
Yeah.
But there was another version that had the same, nuclear narrative that has run away and the bombs can't be recalled. And anyway, is it Deadline?
So I think, this is maybe part of the point to sort of come full circle, is that these questions of adaptation, the particulars may be sexed, and some occasionally an original female creator may feel that her work was not honored appropriately, was not taken seriously enough, and she may be right because she was female, right? That will more rarely happen for original male creators, right? But barring those incidents, which must exist, but I would argue will be a small fraction of the cases where there's disagreements about the quality and the mode of the adaptation, that it's about creativity. And yes, creativity will maybe tend to manifest somewhat differently in male brains and hands and female brains and hands. But the question of, no, actually, I had something different in mind, you didn't get it. No, what was in your work that you didn't know was there was this. And, that's a staggering thing to be told as a creator. Like, you think you found something that in what I did that I don't know was there, and that you're seeing my work more clearly than I did? That's its own philosophical conundrum, and has nothing to do with male versus female.
It's funny, I can imagine being affronted by such a thing, but in science, it's so much the regular phenomenon, and it's actually a hallmark of a kind of success, right? You found an idea so deep you don't see to the bottom of it, right? Which is actually one of the things I was trying to tell Richard Dawkins about memes that he doesn't get. Right? He sees them as trivial and parallel to genes. And it's like, no. You don't understand how much of the magic that is the unique status of humans as an evolutionary phenomenon is the result of the fact that the relationship between genes and memes isn't the one you've spotted.